Welcome back to my studio. My world I call Woodall World, or the Woodall Cave of Wonders. And this is the North Cave. I have a project I'm working on, and this is going to be a short video, but I thought I would show you. Got to working on it, and then I thought, I'll make a video. So, I put these red ribbons out at Christmas time, and they get, excuse my fingers there, they get really bleached out and turn a kind of a ugly orangey pink instead, and I don't know if you can really see that, but in comparison to the red that I want, they really get bleached out and turn faded pinky orangey color. And I have quite a few of them. A couple years ago I tried spray painting them with an acrylic spray paint, which did not work. It looked okay in the beginning, but fairly soon it turned bad, and I ended up throwing all those away. I have quite a few ribbons, so that ends up being quite a bit of cost to replace. What I first started out doing, and let me come over here and get the piece. I started out with RIT liquid dye, and I started out with a spray bottle. I made a fairly thick concentration of the liquid dye, but the spray bottle hurt my hand and it really didn't work very well. It was very uneven. You can still see a little bit of the uneven, though it was a whole lot more uneven than that is. I had started doing these, and you can really see the unevenness in there. You just couldn't get it really smooth and even. So I went back to the internet and did some research about the RIT dyes, and perhaps using them with alcohol instead. And what I found is that even the water-based RIT dye, you can dilute with 90 or better % alcohol and brush it on, and it will really make a good dye. Now, this dye looks really, really dark, but as it dries, it lightens up. Yeah. That one's been rinsed, and it's quite a bit lighter, though I did go over some areas. Because I first did it just with water, I went over some of those areas after I rinsed it with the alcohol mixture. So you just take it and paint it on with a small disposable brush, and it soaks into the ribbon very, very quickly. You have to almost leave the ribbon flat to dry. The alcohol dries pretty fast. You can see the difference in what's here, and that looks real red, but in reality that is a really bleached out, ugly pinky color. It's not a pretty pink, it's an ugly pinky color. And I'll have to stretch this apart a little bit after it starts drying, so that I can get all those places in there. But as you can see, this works really well to brush on this dye. Now it takes two hands, and so I'm going to put this on to the tripod, and I'll come back and show you a little more of the brushing. I've just set this up so that my workspace is pretty much exposed. And I'm going to continue brushing this on. Now sometimes I have to kind of work it to where the middles are exposed. The middles don't generally bleach out. It's the sides that bleach out, like these ends here really bleach out, even more so than the flat part. The streamers bleach out pretty bad, and you do have to kind of hold them down because these have been already in a box. I generally try to stretch them out in the box, but I didn't use some of these because they were so bleached from last year that I just didn't use them. I used less ribbons this year. This year I decided I was going to deal with all this stuff before I put my Christmas decorations away, and so it has taken me a little while to go through and repair some items before putting them up for the rest of the year. There we go. And that one is pretty much all painted off. I'm going to scoop this up just a little bit, because I'm going to take another one. Now this is one of them that I made because the year that I ended up throwing them away, they had already sold most of the ribbons, and so I was late getting things together that year, and I just couldn't find good ribbons. So what I did was to buy some flocked velvet ribbon and make some for myself. And you can tell the ones that were bought because they have this place like this on over the top. And the ones I made just have a piece of ribbon wrapped around that. So that's kind of how you can tell. When I start these, generally speaking, I will lift this up and do the undersides first. That's why it takes two hands. Oh, got some of it on my hands. A little bit of alcohol will take most of this off my hands. Also, you'll notice I have a vinyl tablecloth over my art tables. While alcohol will take alcohol marker off, and so I figure it will take this off as well. I still don't want to have to scrub that long and that hard, so I'm using some vinyl party tablecloths on my studio tables to keep this off of them. They're not that expensive, and if you buy them on sale, they're really cheap, so I keep a bunch on hand for projects. Another thing that works real good for projects, and I think I've said that in some other video, is cheap shower curtain liners. You can usually get them for less than $3, and they make wonderful covers. You can buy sheets and rolls of plastic tarp, but in all honesty, I don't like it as well. I like the shower curtain liners better. I'm going to have to be sure that I end this with one ribbon, because when I mix it up the next time, I'm going to mix it a little different. I found that in my research this morning when researching about the use of the alcohol. It suggested that you use 99% alcohol, and that's cool, but I had 91, and it said you could use anything over 90 pretty successfully, so there we go. I did not pull that up, so I'm going to have to kind of pull that to the side so that I can get this under ribbon right there. Yeah. You can see how dark these look when I first get them painted. But after they dry, this is the same look that this had when I first painted it. And then that one over there was even darker. I noticed the alcohol is easier to work with as well. I don't think I would use a brush that was important to me. This is a really cheap paint brush. It is a fiber brush. It is not a synthetic brush. I think that fiber brushes as a whole tend to hold more liquid than synthetics. There's a little thing to grab a hold of back there. Now I am going to rinse that because I had used some of the water-based, water-diluted dye first. I didn't dilute my dye near what they said to dilute it. But as I got to doing a little more research, which I should have done first, I found that the alcohol carries the dye much better than the water for projects like this. I don't think you'd probably want to use it for dyeing a sweater. Probably better just follow the instructions for dyeing a sweater. But there you can see is my second one. This is already beginning to feel a little dry. Well, as you can see, I ran out of dye in the middle of this ribbon. And this ribbon is going to have some on the back because it's leaned over while it was outside. And so the suggestion for creating alcohol markers is to use 2 to 1. They said you could even replenish alcohol markers with this method. I have not tried that, and I am not going to suppose upon it. I'm going to bring it up to there, and then I'm going to take it up with the alcohol. It's just this is Scarlet. This is a Rit liquid dye. And this is 91% alcohol. I bought some 99 during COVID because I had to buy it online. There we go. That should be about right. And I'm going to stir that real good. So that's approximately 2 to 1. I'll come back over here and get this. Ooh, and it is dark. We'll see. You know, the deal is, and this is what I came up with in doing it, was if I didn't find an answer, I was going to have to throw these away anyway because they were so homely. I wouldn't use them even outdoors. So, so honestly, and I should have some gloves on for this, but the honest truth of the matter is I didn't mind trying something, because even though they're not just horribly expensive, they are not real cheap either when you're using a bunch of them. So it was worth it to me to try, because if I was going to throw them away anyway, and it was a possibility that I could get them to where I didn't have to throw them away, then yeah, that was a thing that I felt like would be worth the effort. The dye was about $3 at the craft store, and the alcohol is about $3. So the whole thing, for a lot of dye, comparatively speaking, and a good amount of alcohol, was pretty cheap. I have not tried recharging permanent markers with this. In fact, this is the first time I've ever tried to use anything like this. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Generally speaking, I will use surgical gloves for really delicate needs, but I think that these food service gloves will satisfy me in here. Let me grab a hold of that and give me a little bit of leverage on this. I am going to rinse these once I get them dyed. I'm going to rinse them with hot water. I don't think that these will bleed much when done with the alcohol. That's kind of one of the things that I noticed in it, talking about it, is that the colors tend to be permanent, a lot more permanent. Again, I don't know that I would do this with a sweater, but for what I'm doing, it seems to be working pretty good. This should be a very informative experiment, even if it's not totally successful. Now that's pretty red right up in there, but I'm going to go ahead and brush it up in there so that I get a little more continuity in my dye job. I did the same thing up in there where the red was still pretty dark. I brushed the dye up into it for the sake of continuity. Again, I'll bring that over the back and kind of level it out. A little bit, I'll turn this over and look at the back side. I did that with both of the big ribbons. I haven't done it with any of the small ribbons yet. I've got maybe 3 more ribbons to do when I'm finished with this. Oh, yeah. A little bit there. And this. This is flowing much better again now. So it's something I may have to watch and just take into account, is that after I'm working with it for a while, the alcohol may have to be punched up a little bit. And it may be that I pick up more alcohol in my brush. I do try to kind of stir it each time I pick it up slightly, but I may not be getting it as stirred. And that may be part of the reason as well, is that I may just be not getting as much alcohol in there. Okay. How about you? Do you have stuff on the back? No, you look pretty good actually. How about you? I use it a little bit, yeah. I don't know that you'd ever see it, but if I hang it on my candy canes or something like that, you might see the back side of some of these. And so there may be some necessity for the back of that to have a little bit of the color punched up. How about you? Oh yeah, you need a little bit on the back. I'm getting a little bit of it off onto my table, and I'm going to have to try not to get it on the floor. The alcohol takes stuff like marker and stuff off, so I'm assuming it would do the same with these. Okay, turn you back over and lay you back down. Okay, I put about 3 gallons of hot water in this 8-gallon bucket. And I'm going to pull this ribbon down into that. And then I'm going to turn this ribbon over, and I can already see, I did a little bit of this with the simply water, and the rest of it was with the alcohol. And I can already see that the water is not near as red as it was when I rinsed that one. So now I'm going to take this out, pull it out of there, and let it drip for a little bit. Okay, let's see. I'm going to pull this up, and this is going to be kind of messy right there. Then I'll bring it in and I'll see if I have to put more dye on it. I had to put more dye on that other one, and that was understandable because it was mostly water. But this one may have to have a little more. I'm just looking at it going, yeah, that may need a little more dye as well. So there we go. Got that. Now I'm going to carry this out. Hang it outside for just a minute while it drips, and I'll be back in. I've put 2 more gallons of hot water in this bucket, and I am going to place these in there. Now these have all been the ones done with just alcohol. I am, by the way, and I'll show them in a little while, but I am truly liking what's happened with the larger ones. I'm quite fond of the look I got. And if I can reclaim these 6, then I'll know something. I will have learned something, and that's what it's all about. All right, I'm going to turn these over so that I start pulling them up from the bottom. Well, there are the larger bowls after they are rinsed. And here are 2 of the smaller bowls after they were rinsed and allowed to drip for a little bit. You can see that the smaller bowls seem to have responded more strongly to the dye than the larger bows. This bow has had touch-up. This bow has not, and I may do a little touch-up on this. I don't know. It'll just depend how it looks once it dries. Actually, I'm quite happy enough with those 2 bows. These bows may just be a little darker red than what I had in the beginning, and that doesn't really bother me much. Anyway, I'm calling it a good product, and I'm going to go out and get the last of the dyed bows and bring them in a minute when they get done dripping. Thank you for spending time with me in my studio, and I hope you'll join me again next time.